Hello and welcome to another episode of Double J's List. If you get a chance, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. It would really help me out a lot. So today I'm going to talk about all of the killer deals out there on used EVs. Now, one of the stereotypes that I hear a lot from people that are like, well, how do they expect everyone to move to an electric vehicle? They're so expensive. That's not necessarily true. Now, first off, the average price of a new vehicle is well over $40,000. So, EVs, a lot of them, are in that price range just to begin with, and as far as new cars are concerned. But today I'm going to talk about the used ones. A lot of people are familiar with the $7,500 EV tax credit for new vehicles that is heavily advertised. However, there is a $4,000, up to $4,000 tax credit for used EVs. So what's interesting right now is that even though used car values are a bit on the high side right now, not so much with EVs. And the reason is, first off, the demand is low. So at least in my opinion, I think what has happened is in the past few years, anyone that has wanted to buy an electric vehicle has done it, right? And then once you own one, there's no oil changes. The battery packs last 10 to 15 years. There's not much else to go wrong with them for the most part. So why would you go and replace it? So the demand, therefore, is kind of low. All right. So on the other side of this, the supply, the number of used EVs out there is extraordinarily high right now. Primarily, I think, at least, is because Hertz, the car rental company, did a thing a few years ago where they tried to push a large electric vehicle fleet in their rental business. And they did that, I think, a little bit prematurely. I don't think the public was quite ready for rental vehicles to be electric and understanding where to charge them, how they work. I don't think we're really ready for that as a whole as far as a rental car is concerned. They have taken a step back. They've looked at it at the highest levels and decided, you know what? This isn't working. We need to get rid of all these electric vehicles that we bought. They're primarily Tesla Model 3s and Chevy Bolt EUVs. I'm going to talk about those in depth in a little bit here. One of the things that has changed with the EV tax credit, both for new and used, is that at the time of purchase, the dealer can apply it to your vehicle. So previously, I believe last year, if you wanted that $7,500 tax credit or $4,000 used car tax credit, you had to wait until you filed your taxes, and then you would get it back on your taxes. So if you you get an extra $4,000 or $7,500 at the end of the year when you get your tax return. Now the dealership can apply it to that deal, and so that makes basically your purchase price less. Now, I am going to include a link below to the IRS's website concerning this used car EV tax credit. So you can read into it and see if you qualify. Just for instance, one of the qualifications, if you're filing a joint tax return, you have to make less than $150,000 a year. Okay, so jointly. Again, I'm not going to get into the details of it. Do your own research because I am not a tax expert by any means. Make sure you do your own research and read up on that. Okay. On that IRS website, there is a link to the vehicles that qualify for this tax credit. On that website, it's basically anything that has a battery of 7 kilowatt hours or larger. That includes a lot of different plug-in hybrid vehicles and full EVs. I'm going to focus on the full EVs now because after looking at the market, I think that they are the most significant deals as far as what you can get in the used car market and apply this $4,000 tax credit to. So some of the restrictions of this is that the vehicle itself has to cost $25,000 or less. And it has to be 2 years or older. So right now it's 2024. So cars that are 2023 model year, you can't get the $4,000 credit on. However, if it is 2022 or older, yes, then you can get this tax credit. So something to keep in mind while you're looking at this. And also, I want you to know this. When you're looking on used car listings, there is some of the dealerships are listing the price taking into account the $4,000 tax credit, so the price will be $4,000 less than what they're actually asking. Whether you qualify for the tax credit or not, they're just putting that price out there. Other dealerships aren't. Make sure you read the fine print, usually in the description of that ad, usually on like the cars.com, Auto Traders, and Car Gurus, the types of websites. There should be some writing down there saying that they included the rebate in the price, or they have not. Your best to contact that dealership via telephone or email or however to verify the correct price of the car. It makes shopping a little bit hard, but that's exactly what they want to do, I think, right? Some dealerships, not all, are a bit unscrupulous. Anyway, I'm going to focus on the full EVs, and I'm going to focus on what I feel are some of the most practical EVs to use this tax credit on. So some of the criteria that I use, I think that you really got to have a range of over 200 miles. The more the better for most people. So one of the reasons is that 200 miles, that's a lot of driving to do in one day if you're driving back and forth to work and running errands. Like if you're doing over 200 miles a day, that's a lot of driving. So you're going to want to have a battery that can at least handle that. Also, something to consider, if you live in cold weather like I do here in Buffalo, New York, on those cold weather days, like you're going to lose 50 miles of range, at least. Just because you're running the heater, and that sucks up some battery, and it conditions itself and uses some of the battery to keep the battery a certain temperature, and that just tends to eat up more battery too. So yeah, you're going to knock some off. So yeah, having more than 200 miles of range is going to be really helpful in those situations, especially in cold weather places. I wouldn't consider it anything less than that unless you know that you do a small amount of driving and you're comfortable with the limitations of it. There are some EVs that get less than 50 miles of range, and then you're done. That really limits you as far as like what your commute is, if you're running the heater, if it's cold out, if you are using the highway more and you're going faster, that depletes battery faster than if you're doing stop and go. You want a good buffer, in my opinion, and 250 miles, yeah, that gives you a good amount for what most people do. So something to consider when you're out there shopping. Now, here are basically what I have come to the conclusion of the two most compelling used EV deals right now. The first one being a car that's near and dear to my heart is the Chevy Bolt. So the 2017 through 2021 EVs, that's the small one, like the very first one I had 2020 myself. Those are right now selling like between $10,000 and $15,000. So if you take $4,000 off of that, boy, do you have an inexpensive newer car. A lot of these have really low miles, and you've got to understand that some of these were actual buybacks, like mine was. So normally when you see, like in the Carfax, that a car was bought back by the manufacturer, that's kind of a red flag. In my opinion, in this case, it's not much of a red flag. In fact, it actually might be a benefit. So, because there was a huge recall on these cars, they had to replace the battery packs, and a lot of them, they couldn't get the battery packs built in time to replace. So they just offered to buy the people's cars back, like they did with mine. These cars all went back. From what I understand, most of them, if not all, got brand new battery packs. So you're starting off with a newer battery pack than what you would have if you were buying one that's older. So if you see one that's been bought back, don't hesitate on that much. Take a look at it and actually read into it and find out why it was bought back if you can. If it was bought back because of the recall, like that's actually more of a blessing than it is a curse. So I love that little 2020 Bolt that I had. Fantastic car, 250-ish miles of range, and fun to drive around, really practical, awesome little car. Now, if you want to spend a little bit more money than that, in the year 2022, they did a substantial upgrade on the EV where they basically corrected all of the problems that people were complaining about on the initial Bolt EV. They substantially increased the quality of the interior. They made the seats much more comfortable. A much, much, much better car. So if you're willing to spend a little bit more money to get into that, that was a good idea. Also, in 2022, they added the EUV model, which basically they're trying to call it like a sport utility or crossover vehicle. It was essentially just a Bolt with an extra like 6 inches or so of wheelbase that made the back seat bigger, and then they put little plastic fender flares on to make it look like an SUV. But it's a much more usable vehicle. I had a 2022 EUV, and it was a fantastic size. Love the extra space in the back seat for my kids in the car seats, and it rode substantially better. The seats were way more comfortable. They got rid of most of the cheap plastics that were in the interior. Far and away a much better car. Would really recommend getting a Premier like I had with the cooled seats, all sorts of goodies. If you could find one even that has Super Cruise, which is General Motors' version of full self-driving, probably a really cool thing. And you could probably find one for under $25,000, which is incredible because these things were like $45,000 a couple of years ago. So, yeah, really good buys, awesome little cars. Now, one thing that I will say is that most of these EVs aren't the best for road trips. I did a video, I'll put a link in, popping up on the screen right now, for when I did a road trip to Syracuse in our EUV, and I went to a DC fast charger, and it didn't quite, the first one didn't work, and then I had to move over to the next one next to it, and then took a few times with the credit card, and then finally worked, and I don't think it charged as much as it should have, and then we were a little limited on the ride home. I had to figure the whole route out myself using different apps and things like that to be able to charge it in time. All the EVs pretty much aren't really good at doing road trips, except, and that's where I'm leading into, Teslas. I was initially really resistant to the idea of buying a Tesla or buying into their stuff. Some of their fans are a little bit abrasive and push their stuff a little bit too hard. But I started doing my own research, and they are very good at some of the things that they do. And road trips. And the reason that road trips are really good in Teslas is because they have their own charging network. Their charging network is the best. There's no arguing that. You pull up, the car communicates with the charger. There's no getting out an app or a credit card and trying to get a charger to work. You back into the space. It knows it's you. You plug in. It starts charging. Fantastic, right? Secondly, their user interface inside the car. Their GPS works to, let's say you're driving to a long distance. It's going to tell you where to stop at one of their supercharges and how long you need to charge on that charger, so you'll have enough juice with a margin of error to get to the next supercharger. So you're not going to be sitting at that charger to get a full battery if you don't need to, which is great, because then it opens up the charger for the next person that may need it. It also doesn't waste your time while you're waiting for so their computer network, their charging, all of that stuff, far above and beyond pretty much everybody else. One of the complaints that people sometimes have about Tesla is the fact that they don't have Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, but their user interface is so good, and you can download pretty much any app that you'd ever wanted to use on that on your car, that it works better than using Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. Somebody, I saw one comment somewhere, just think of Android Auto and Apple CarPlay as band-aids for lousy car infotainment interfaces. That's all they really do, because the rest of the industry is just really far behind. Some people say Tesla is more of a tech company than it is a car company, and that makes sense in this particular application. So moving on, the Tesla Model 3, which there are a ton on the market right now. I think the sweet spot on these is the long range model, because you get 300-ish miles of range, which is a ton. They're dual motor, which is Tesla speak for all-wheel drive. Dual motor because there's one at the front and then one at the back powering the wheels. They're pretty darn quick cars. You're talking 0 to 60 in the 4s. They have a good sized trunk, and then if that's not enough space, you've got a space in the front that's called a frunk, the front trunk. They have a good sized back seat. People use these things as Ubers all the time, so they have ample space. One of the complaints that people have, because we live in this crossover SUV world right now, and it's not. It's a four-door sedan with a trunk, but you're kind of making up for some of the lack of space that you have in the back because it's not a hatchback by having an extra trunk in the front. So something to think about, and if you want to live on the edge a little bit and have something that's really, really special, and you're willing to get a car that might be a couple years older and have some more miles on it, you can find a Model 3 Performance. These cars are ridiculous as far as performance is concerned. So they do 0 to 60 in the threes. They bang out 11-second quarter miles. Crazy performance, and I was finding these things for under $25,000. You're not going to find a quicker car, I don't think, for 25 grand. Plus, minus a tax credit, which is absolutely incredible when you really think about it. So, yeah, the Model 3 is probably where it's at for Tesla. But I'm going to talk about some of the other Teslas real quick that may hit this tax credit. The Model Y is the SUV crossover that's based on the Model 3. So for those of you that really, really want to hatch, this might qualify. But there are not many of these under $25,000. And the ones that are under 25 grand tend to have really high miles. So you're not saving nearly the money because you want an SUV. Everybody wants an SUV. There's demand there. So that may not be the best way to go, but it's a path you can take. Model S's, the big luxurious sedan that came out over 10 years ago. There are a lot of these actually under $25,000. Some of these older ones don't have that much range. You're talking older tech because it's just the computers were older at that time. However, it is a much bigger, nicer, more comfortable car. One of the drawbacks of the Model 3 and the Model Y is the fact that they have one screen in the center of the dashboard, and your speed and everything is on the corner next to the steering wheel, so you kind of have to look to the side as you're driving for that. There's no screen in front of you or on the steering wheel like a traditional car to see that sort of information, whereas the Model S has a screen behind the steering wheel. It's more of a practical, normal, like it's more of a traditional driving experience, and then it has a massive screen in the middle with all sorts of controls. So despite not being as high tech as far as the computers and chips and everything are concerned, the interface is bigger and a little bit probably easier to use. So something to think about. Another thing I really like about the Model S, it's really rare, but if you can find one, they had a third row seat that faced backwards in the cargo area, like an old school station wagon. Super cool. I would love one of those. But again, and then trying to find one of those and then finding it under 25 grand, it's a little challenging. Some of the disadvantages also of the S, I saw that I don't think someone's got, leave some comments and let me know what you know about this, because I might be wrong on this, but I don't think they charge as fast as some of the newer Tesla models, because you're going to be getting an older one if it's 25 grand or less. So apparently these ones that are a little closer to 2022, you go to a supercharger and it'll charge faster. Let me know about that. Leave something in the comments, let me know. So anyway, and also one of the things I really, really like about the Model S, and this is just opinion more than any actual measurable fact, I think it's really a nice looking car. Very, very, I know the car is kind of old now because it's been around for 10 years, but the lines just are timeless. It's a great looking sedan. It's, I feel like they've taken that design language and squished it to get it on the Model 3, and it doesn't look quite right, and have made it tall on the SUVs, and that doesn't look quite right, but it looks really, really right on the Model S. All right, now moving on, and this one's an outlier, and I actually don't even recommend it, but I did find a few for under $25,000, is the Model X, which is the SUV that is based on the Model S. They have these things called, for the back doors, they're called Falcon Wing doors. They're these power doors that rise up and have a lot of hinges and electronics, and it seems like they have a lot of points where they can fail and do fail. The seals don't seem to seal up very well, and there's wind noise and things like that from them. I would just stay away from a Model X. Also, there aren't that many of them for under $25,000 anyway, so yeah, I would avoid that. So, but anyway, yeah, that's what I found. Like, if you're buying a new car and you want something for like $20,000 or less, your best way of going about it right now is to buy an EV using this discount. Everything else is so darn expensive right now. Why not go this route? So go ahead. Anyway, if you get a chance, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. I'd really appreciate it. Leave some comments. Let me know what you think. Maybe I'm completely off and you hate EVs. Go ahead and leave that comment, sure. Or you love EVs and you have one of these cars and you want to share with the world that you like it. Or you're considering it. If you have any questions, leave it down there and we'll get back to you. Thank you for watching.